The thing I didn't talk about too much yesterday was what happens if you have something like this, x squared y to the third. Everybody write this down. I'm going to put a 2 in front of it, and then all of that is squared. We didn't do too many like that, but I think you could handle this, can't you? Take the 2 and you square it, take the x squared and you put it to the second, and you take the y to the third, put it to the second. Try that, just try that, and then we'll make it a little more complicated. Got this? Liv, what does it start with? 2 squared, so what's the answer? Liv? 2 squared, which is what? 4. 2 to the second is 4, okay? And then it's x squared, and we have to put it to the second. So that's x to the what? 4th. And the last part is the y's. Yep. And that's your answer.
Wait, how'd you get the 4 from like the big 4?
Because that was the red stuff. That was this 2 in front getting squared.
Oh.
Okay. All right, let's do another one like that. There's a lot of people that struggle with that kind. So I'd like to try this one. 4x to the third b, all of that squared. But the b doesn't have a number on it. Well, what number does it have if there isn't any other number?
1.
1. Good. So this is really like b to the 1, right? Okay, so see if you can do this. This is from yesterday. Nolan, what's the 4 going to turn into? 16 is correct. A lot of people do an oops and say it's 8. No, it's 4 to the second.
Oh.
And then, it happens all the time. And then there's x to the 6th is correct. And last is b to the 1 times 2 is 2. That's it. There's your answer. Okay, so how do they get even more complicated? Well, what if there was one just like that? 4, it even starts the same. M to the third x. All of that is squared. And then it's times 2x. Oh, it's too complicated. I can't do it. Just do a one step at a time. I talked about walking to Patagonia at the beginning of the year. I said, if you wanted to walk to that one of the most beautiful places on earth, all you'd have to do is keep walking south. And then, I know, there's a couple exceptions, and it'd be a very dangerous voyage, but you'd probably have to go across the Panama Canal somehow. I think they have a bridge over it at some point, but all right, so my point, one step at a time. That's how you get a hard problem done. You can do this part, so do it. You just practice that kind. And then when you get that answer, you just have to times it by 2x. And I know that's complicated, but I'm about to show you. Did you have 16 m to the 6th x to the 2nd? Is that what you had? Cool. Now here's where a lot of people think that the blue stuff and the red stuff are like completely separate and they can't go together. That's wrong. Because all of the blue stuff is times together, and so is the red stuff. They're not separate. They're all one big problem. If I said 2 times 3 times 5, did you know I could start with the 3 times 5 and then times by 2? You can rearrange things that are multiplied. That's the same as that. They're equal. You can rearrange them. So I'm going to rearrange this and put the 16 and the 2 next to each other. 16 times 2, and everybody knows that. You're just timesing 16 times 2. And then I'm going to bring the x or squared down. Oh, wait, I should really have the m first because you're supposed to put them in alphabetical order. It isn't that important. I wouldn't mark it wrong if you put the x before the m. I'm going to put the m next. And I'm going to put this x squared with this x. And if it doesn't have a power, put a power of 1. It'll help. And that means I can put those x's together because they're like terms, aren't they? And make it x to the what? Add them. Third. And why would I get it marked wrong if I wrote it like this? Because 16 times 2 should have been simplified. So final answer would have been 32, m to the 6th, x to the 3rd. All right, so I think the part that would have gotten some of you is that last part where you can put the 16 and the 2 together. Yeah, you can. 32 m to the 6th, x to the 3rd. All right, x to the 4th times x to the 3rd. I know some of you are going to say x to the 12th. No, 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 no. Kennedy, what is it actually? Yeah, that kind you add. X to the 4th over x to the 3rd. I hope you're picturing it as exploded view. I'm not going to make you do exploded view. I just think it helps if you get stuck. You can just go, well, there's 4 x's on the top, 3 on the bottom. Most of them cancel. What's the answer? X to the 1 is true. You can just say x. If I had written exploded view out, because again, if you're not good at this, this way works pretty good. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Look at that. The answer is x. Okay. All right. Now, the new stuff for us today is just this. If you had to solve this, do you know what to do? Not many kids do. Some kids can guess and check and they go, oh, it's 4. Because 4 squared is 16. Well, that's good, but let me show you something. Did you know that the opposite of squaring is square rooting? I did the opposite. The squared comes off. And right here is a super important part. Remember, you're in Algebra 2. This is not baby algebra anymore. This is higher level, high school algebra. And it could even be considered the beginning of college algebra. All right, so this is not just x. A lot of people teach this wrong. A lot of people say that that's just x. It's not. That's the absolute value of x. The square root of a variable comes out with an absolute value. I know that's weird. But the reason is because the square root of 16 is 4, and we know there's 2 answers. Do you get that 4 or negative 4 both work? If you're going to square it, remember the original problem, and I'll put in blue here, x squared equals 16. I hope you get that 4 works, but so does negative 4. So how the heck do you get 2 answers? Because remember absolute values, you got to do the splits. X equals 4, x equals negative 4. 2 answers. This is really important. Okay, everybody write this one down. X squared equals 25. How do you get rid of squared? Louder. Square root. Then, absolute value of x. What's the square root of 25? 5. Now, because it's an absolute value, you got to do the splits. Pausing for a second. So this one came out to 2 answers, 5 and negative 5. If you just look at the original problem, I think you'll see that 5 squared is 25. And if you put in a negative 5, it would also work, okay? All right, so then how do these get any more complicated? What if they had 2 x squared equaled 2? Some kids get stuck because they're like, whoa, my square rooting, and then I have the square root of 2, and that's really weird. Don't do it. That's not what you do first. This is kind of like those absolute values. You have to do something first before you square root. What do you do before you square root? You're going to divide by 2. Very good. x squared equals, what's 2 divided by 2? 1. And the next part is where you square root. And 1 is a weird number, because when you square root 1, it's what? 1. And the square root of x squared, have you learned this yet? Absolute value of x. It's not just x, otherwise you'd be done. Why aren't you done? Because there's 2 answers. Then you do the splits, and you get x equals 1, x equals negative 1. So, you know how I could have known there was going to be 2 answers? Because there's a squared. I just told this to my pre-calc class. They didn't know that that was a thing. If there's a squared, hi there, pausing for a second. Okay, if there's a squared there, that means there's 2 answers. Maybe you never noticed this before. In a problem like this, how many answers are there? Only 1. You know why? Because this has a power of 1. When we solve today's, they're all going to have a power of 2 on them. Take a wild guess at what that means. 2 answers. Say it was this. Well, you'd go square root, and you get 2 answers. Why? Because this is absolute value, and the square root of 100 is 10. And then you get 2 answers because of that absolute value. See what I mean? What if it was x to the power of 4 plus 6x minus 9 equals 0? And I'm solving that. There's 4 answers. It's the power that tells you how many answers you're going to get. That make sense to you? So if it was x to the 54th power, there'd be 54 answers. Don't worry, we won't do that. But today's, you get a lot of problems where it's squared, and that means there's 2 answers. All right, so let's try one more. That's a little more like what you typically have to do today. 3 to the x equals 3 to the 7th. I want you to just think about this for a second. Just think for a second. What's x got to be? I know you're thinking like, well, what do I do to both sides? We don't have to do that. If I put the number in there, you're going to be like, well, oh my gosh, that's so obvious. 3 to the 7th equals 3 to the 7th, doesn't it? So what's x got to be? 7. So you have to be able to like think. You can't just like, oh, okay, I always do this on this kind of problem. You have to be able to think. I mean, 3 to the what is 3 to the 7th? Well, x has to be 7. 3 to the 7 is 3 to the 7. So obviously, x must be 7. But here's the kind of the rule that you got to watch out for. If the bases are the same, then these equal each other. Okay, so if the bases are both a 3, then the exponents just have to be equal. I'll give you another one like that. 3 equals 3 to the 5th, but I'm going to put an x here. I don't think I can fool you this time. What's x got to be? 5. Okay? All right. Now, what if this had been a little more complicated? 3x, and let's say this was 15. If the bases are the same, then you can ignore them and just say those exponents have to be equal. Then what does x have to be? 5. Because 3x has to equal 15. The exponents have to be equal. Those have to be equal. So x has to be 5. Very good. How did I know there was only going to be one answer? Because it wasn't squared. If there had been a squared, I'd have known there was 2 answers. If it had been to the 3rd power, I'd have known there was 3 answers. All right, last kind, so you can handle almost anything. Let's say I said x to the 3rd equals 8. If I want to solve this, I want to show you how a calculator could do this. A calculator could do this by doing whatever will cancel that 3. Whatever will cancel the 3. What power do you think I'm going to put right there that will make that 3 cancel? Do you know what cancels the 3? A 1/3 does. A 1/3. You may have never have seen a fraction power in your life, but you just did. A fraction power. If I do 1/3 power on that side, I got to do 1/3 power on this side. And you may never have heard of it before, but that doesn't mean your calculator doesn't know. 3 cancels 1/3, and x is just x. It could be x to the 1. It's the same thing as x. 8 to the 1/3 power would be your answer. Would you know how to put that in on a calculator? You'd go 8 to the, that's the caret key that's on a calculator, or it's on your iPad. And I'd always put my fractions in parentheses. 1/3 like that. If you put parentheses around it, it'll keep the order from getting messed up. So if you want to use a calculator, which will be allowed, then you can put things to the fraction power. I'm going to leave that on the screen and see if you can handle this one. So what's a to the 3rd equals 27? What would you do to both sides? Ian, what are you going to do to both sides? Up 2 Ians. Yes. And then your calculator can do 27 to the 1/3. Even your iPad's calculator can. Try to find the caret. It's going to be used a lot this unit. And put the 1/3 in parentheses. Try that. Everybody type that in on the calculator. You'll get a nice clean answer. All right. I see some of you haven't gotten motivated enough. I'm going to pause for a minute. I want to walk around the room and see your calculator screen with the answer on it. So type this in your calculator. Pausing. We're back from lunch here, and the problems for today are going to involve you putting something in a calculator like this. So let's talk about how that happens again. You're in the middle of solving something like this. 3x to the 3rd is equal to 24. Sorry, 24. Go to 24 over there. Okay, who knows how to start? Come on, somebody step up. Mallory. Divide by 3. And then I got x to the 3rd equals, somebody got 24 divided by 3, what is it? 8, good. Now, how do you get a 3 off of there? Put it to the power of? 1/3. You put it to the power of 1/3. Now your calculator can do this. If you know how to use it, you go 8. And some of your calculators, I noticed this only when you guys showed me on the iPad. Some of your calculators use this button, the x to the n button. And that's kind of saying, hey, you want to put it to a power? Use this key. And then remember, you've got to use 1 divided by 3. 8, that's the power key on the iPads. A lot of kids use an iPad calculator. I was looking for the caret too, but I guess on the iPad's calculator, they like x to the n. So 8 to the 3rd is, did you get 2? 2. And let's think about why that is. Because 2 to the 3rd is 8, see? Because if the answer is 2, then that means at the beginning, this whole answer, it was 2 right here. Because 2 to the 3rd is 8, and then 8 times 3 is 24, see? If the answer is 2, it's because 2 works in there. And 2 to the 3rd means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And then 8 times the 3 makes 24, see? All right, let's start the Schoology quiz. Everybody open the Schoology quiz right now. It is your homework, and I want to start it with you. I'll do the first problem and maybe even start the second problem. Can you read me problem 1 of the Schoology quiz, Megan?
3 to the power of 5 equals 3a.
3 to the a?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This one stumped the entire class last time, but I think I've helped you figure it out. Got this? What's A gotta be? A is 5. Because if these are equal, then these have to be equal. And so A must equal 5. He talked to me before, so he's not out. Jack, was that one of the options for number 1? Or was it just a fill in the blank? Okay. Well, I can promise you it's 5. But don't type A equals 5. Unless it says to, you just type in 5. Okay? Unless it says you have to say like A equals 5 as your answer. Normally, they just want the answer. Okay, on to number 2. Lily, would you read me number 2?
4t equals 4 to the power of negative 4.
4 to the power of what?
Oh, wait, no. 4 to the power of t equals...
Oh, 4 to the power of t equals what?
Equals 4 to the power of negative 4.
All right. Have I trained you well enough? All right. Amelia, look up here. Are the bases the same? So therefore, yeah, t is negative 4. That's all there is to it. Don't overthink those. All right. Next one, Kennedy. Read me number 3.
64 is equal to 4b, or 4 to the power of b.
4 to the power of b. Okay. We're going to have to think on this one. 4 to the what is 64? Is 4 to the power of 1 equal to 64? No. 4 to the power of 2 equal to 64? No. 4 to the power of 3? I know you might need to check it with a calculator, but how many of you guessed it's probably 4 to the third? You are correct. It's 4 to the third. And you'd use a calculator and go 4 to the third, and it would be 64, and you'd be like, sweet, I've got it. All right. Now, I want to show you how my honors kids do this, and some of you are going to like this. They go and make the 64 into 4 to the third, because that is 64, and then it's 4 to the third is 4 to the b. And then do you get how the bases are the same? So then this is 3. If you can rewrite a big number as something to a power, so you make the bases the same, I'm not saying you have to use that way, but it's a good way. All right, read me the next one, E and G. Or E and K, sorry.
35 to the power of x.
Negative 5 to the power of x.
No, 25.
25. Oh, you're so quiet, and I'm so old, I can't hear you. 25 to the power of x. Talk a little louder.
Equals to 135.
What is it?
135.
125. Okay, cool. Again, I would ask you 2 ways to do it. 25 to the first? Nope, too small. 25 to the second? Well, maybe. I don't know. I'd grab a calculator and see if it worked. Okay. 25 squared is 25 squared 125? No, it isn't actually. 25 squared is 625. So what the heck? We're going to have to do it the way that I taught my honors kids to do it. So here's what you do. You want to make both of them into powers. We want to make this into a power. Who knows what 25 is? What to the what? 5 to the what? Second. Good. 5 to the second. And then there's the x. Equals, I know this is stretching, but do any of you know what 125 is?
5 to the third.
Yes. And now look at that. The bases are the same. So Jack, what do you think the final answer is? The exponents have to be equal. So what's my little equation that I'll have? What's the exponent on the left side? This part. Say that.
2x.
Yep. Equals, what's the exponent on the right side?
3.
There's your equation. And now anybody can solve that. All right. So we're going to have to know that way. You got to make things into powers. So 25 was 5 squared. I think you guys knew that one. 125 was 5 to the third. I know that's stretching it a little bit. A lot of people wouldn't have known that 5 to the third is 125. But you'll have a calculator, And you would have been smart enough to know it has to be a 5. Because this was a 5. So this has to be a 5. And then you'd have to go 5 to the first, 5 to the second, 5 to the third. It works. All right. And then at the end, watch. This had to equal that. Because I know once we get that, everybody in the room knows how to divide by 2, and the answer is 3/2. It's getting to that point that's the hard part. Now, how would you type that in on the calculator? Honestly, I'd just type 3/2. That's the answer, and you just type in what you see. If you type in 1 and 1/2, it will mark you wrong. That's why I really don't like it that the elementary teachers call this improper, because it makes it sound like that's wrong, and you have to write it as 1.5. No, actually, you'll get it wrong if you write it as 1.5 right now. All right. I don't want to do your whole assignment, but Mallory, can you tell me the next one?
49 equals 343 to the power of 7.
All right. Well, I have no clue what, I really don't. I don't know what 343 is, something to the something. But I know what 49 is. What's that? 7 to the second. Good. Then I'm guessing that 7 to the something is 343. And it's got to be bigger than 2. I'm guessing it's 7 to the third. But I don't know. Grab your calculator and try 7 to the third. Did it work? Can anybody verify that?
Yeah.
7 to the third is 343. So I'm putting this. What haven't I brought down yet? That I got a W. That has to come down. And from here, you're supposed to be able to do it. The bases are the same, so the exponents are equal. You're having a hard time seeing over this stuff, aren't you? This to okay. So let's just do one more. I think from here, if you can't get it, you have to solve that, and I can't tell you. You've got to do it yourself. So just you can, I made it so that you can resume this and like go back to the previous question. So go on to the next question if you couldn't figure that one out. And I'm going to pick on Kennedy again. Would you read me the next question, and that'll be the last one I do.
4 to the power of 2p
Equals?
4 to the power of negative 2p minus 1.
Ooh, it got tricky. But it's really not that scary. Are the bases the same? Then you can just say this equals this. Does that look like an equation that we just got tested on solving? That's kind of the point. 2p equals negative 2p minus 1. And from there, you have to be able to solve it. I would add 2p to both sides. All right. I promised kids I'd have some work time. So this is the part where you can work on this as the rest of your homework. If you have any other missing homework, remember that the retake is going to happen in the next few days, and that'll mean the end of your chance to turn in late work for the first chapter. All right, so I encourage you to get any missing work in from that first chapter. The retake is coming soon. If you want to take the retake, it's on Mondays in the morning, 7:05. Wednesdays during Mast, which is tomorrow. That would work. Or Thursday mornings also work. Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Those are my days you can get extra help. That's all I have for the video for today.